Good day, people and friends. Over this past few years, I've done many videos where I ask the question, and I ask you to ask the question also. What is it actually that we are? Are we anything? How can we really discern this thing that we think is an I? You see, when we look for the I, we can't find the I. We find a brain, we find a thought pattern, we find programs. The only time we will find the I is when we are outside of our programs and thought patterns. When we are just pure awareness. I was going to say when we realise we are pure awareness, but the pure awareness doesn't need to realise itself, it is. So what's going on? Why is the I, the all-pervasive awareness, so obscured in so many people? Because the ego is prevalent, and the ego is programs, and the ego dominates this body, because after all, without the ego, this body couldn't exist. It couldn't function. It would just be bedbound and entirely dependent on somebody feeding it for its existence. Because if it never had an ego, then it wouldn't have an operating system and it wouldn't make any choices. So there's lots of people that know that there is this soul, this spirit, because they've encountered such a thing. And with near-death experiences and psych substance experiences, then you can feel, you can experience something different, which lends itself to you thinking that you're not this body, that you're this other thing, this awareness that can seemingly go other places. So when we look at the body and the brain, in everyday circumstances, I get up this morning and I look at the weather and I think, beautiful day again. Okay, so I think I'm going to go to the gym. I've not made my mind up. Who's not made its mind up? What's not made its mind up? What's not decided? There's something within me which offers up suggestions, choices, and it says, well, shall we go to the beach now? Shall we go and have a walk on the beach at this hour rather than an hour later during the day? And then there's a discourse going on within inside this body, and it's kind of like, it's a bit cold. Yeah, well, it'd be okay, you know, a bit chilly. It's no big deal. It's not that cold. We don't usually go walking in the morning. We usually go walking when the sun's high in the sky and it's warmer and it's a little bit more pleasant. We've got this conversation going on, haven't we? And so, who is it that says, shall we go to the beach? Shall I go to the beach? You see, if there's only an I, why does the I need to say, shall I go to the beach? You see, this concept of I, it really throws a spanner in the works, because if it wasn't for the fact that we seem to have choice, we seem to be at least two entities who can argue with one another. And the one that's the most powerful, autonomous, at any given hour, then that one guides this ship. For instance, it doesn't appear that the one that suggested that I walk on the beach is going to be autonomous today. It seems the one that says, it's a little bit chilly, let's go to the gym first and then go. It seems that's the one that's going to win, because that one wins almost every day. Why does that one win over the other one? What is it that makes that one stronger? me as a human being, as this ego, can I exercise a level of autonomy over that? Can I one morning decide that I'm going to change my pattern and I'm going to go to the beach every morning and I'm going to go to the gym in the afternoon? But what's happened? There's a certain preference to going to the gym in the morning, get it out of the way, then you can relax, you know you've done it. Otherwise you can procrastinate a little bit and put it off and maybe you won't go. So let's do that now. That one wins the day every day. Why is it so difficult to change it around? Because patterns have been formed. And patterns become stronger and stronger the more we engage with them. When we look at the brain, two hemispheres of the brain, and joining the brain is the corpus callosum. Now, in epileptic people, some variety of epilepsy, they cut the corpus callosum. And then the two hemispheres can think entirely independent. They don't share any thoughts. There's no facility for thoughts being shared. So there becomes two brains. And they do tests whereby if they close the left eye, then evidently it is the right side of the brain which is in operation, because this is how it works. If you close the right eye, the left side of the brain is in operation. And so if you do this, and if you do tests like you put your hands out like this, and somebody in the test says something to you, asks you a question, there's certain parts of the brain that only respond to certain things. And so they will only respond a certain way. The other side of the brain will respond another way. And so it is clear then that even though there are two people, seemingly, they don't have all of the information that they have when they share the brain. And so it seems to me then that when you look at these two hemispheres of the brain, they are in actual fact two individual brains constituting two selves. Because one has a preference about something, and the other one has a preference about something else. And this is why we have this conflict continuously. Oh, shall we go here? Oh no, let's go here. Oh, I really want to do this. Well, I can't be bothered. All the time we've got this conflict going on. There are people that when they've had their corpus callosum cut, the two sides of their brain are so in conflict that one wants to get them dressed in the morning time and the other one wants to undress them. And so you've got one hand doing up the buttons on a shirt and you've got the other hand simultaneously undoing them again. And you've got this great conflict going on. And it's maddening for the people who have this. And so I've always maintained that there are at least two me's. And it seems very logical when you look at these tests. But I would go further than that. And I've always said also that there are many facets of me. And because the facets of me are so profound and so autonomous during certain conditions, we are like a multifaceted gemstone. And all we do with any given situation in life, when something presents itself to us, a certain circumstance presents itself to us, then what we do is, or what it does, this multifaceted gemstone, it turns round a different facet of what we are to engage with what it is that we are seeing, apparently, feeling, whatever. Whatever is suitable for us, we'll turn this round. And you can see this happening with me. Because I can get what I consider to be channeled information. And I say that I don't have any control over that because the information just comes and I have a certain urgency to speak it, to alleviate the brain, to open this portal, to allow the information to come through, to be articulated and then put out for the benefit of other people. But that doesn't happen all the time. On other occasions, I can think about, oh, that might be interesting. I'll make a video about that and I'll think about it. And like this now. But you see, what happened is my cognition was turned into a certain facet because I just watched a video that somebody, one of my viewers, sent me. And I'll post this video down below, and it's talking about where's the eye? What is the eye? How can we find the eye? They're suggesting things like, if you go into a teleportation device and this device teleports you exactly the same replica as you are, and you end up on Mars, for instance, you have the same memories, and so you're on Mars and you go, wow, I'm on Mars now, but how does that work? Because I've been completely broken down and I've been completely built up again. So is it the same I? Is it the same me? I have the same memories and everything else about me is the same, but there's been something that's happened, and so I have to ask the question, is it me now on Mars? Then if you take it further, what happens is, with this teleportation machine, it malfunctions, and it actually does send a replica to Mars, but it doesn't destroy the version which stepped into the teleportation machine. That person steps out and goes, I'm still here. What's happened? I'm supposed to be on Mars. And the operator says, you are on Mars, and shows him a screen of him on Mars, televised screen, and he's talking and he's fully compass mentis, and he's going, I'm on Mars. And then he's looking at the version of him still on Earth. And the one on Earth is looking at the version of him on Mars and he's going, hang on, where's the I? What is the I? Where does it derive from? And so, if this is possible to have this I, which can replicate itself unlimitedly, really, you know, if we look at that sort of test, that experiment, if it can do it on an ongoing basis, then there would be millions of eyes thinking that we're somewhere else. And when we have these millions of eyes thinking that we are a separate entity, we're looking from another perspective, don't you think that that's like what we already are? But the only difference being is that we look different. Because if we stand in front of a mirror with all the other human beings, the eyes, then they would look different, and you go, you're not me, you're evidently not me, you're different. Because you have a different Earth suit. Whereas if there was this teleportation mechanism that replicated one human being, then we'd all look exactly the same. And that would really lead to great confusement, wouldn't it? Because, well, it would definitely lead to no variety, that's for sure. So it's really, really curious when we look to try to find the I and what it is. And so I think I've got a little bit more to say about this, so I'll just think for a moment. Can't really think of anything else. So, what do you think about this then, people? You see, when we look for the I and we go, me, you, it really is nonsense at the end of the day, because it doesn't matter what test they do, they can discern that this thing that you think is an I doesn't exist. It can be replicated endlessly, it can be confused endlessly, it will be in a constant contradiction to itself endlessly. And so, if I was to say to myself now, myself, what is the self? I've said so many times, I've got no idea what the self is, because I've delved into the depth of this variety of knowledge, and when you do that, it becomes really, really murky. And I'm sitting here now, there's a certain facet of this thing which presents itself to the camera for you. And then there's a certain facet of this thing that watches this thing back on the screen. And here's this one looking at that one, saying exactly what I'm saying now. Why do I even find that remotely interesting? And then, if I look at that pixelated version, it looks me. It looks just like me. Only, you know, I can't see me because my eyes are here. But I can see me when I have this teleportation replica of me. But the only thing is, this teleportation replica is a replication of an event which happened in the past. So, in 10 minutes time I'll upload this video onto the computer and I'll be watching it. And I'll go, who's that guy? What happened there? We've now got two of these guys saying the same thing. And when you look at this internet thing, I'm going to have about 500 views on this video. So, therefore then, there's going to be a replication times 500 of what I'm saying in this variety of illusory, pixelated form. Not a lot different to the illusory, pixelized form of a hologram. You see, when we are teleported, then we break down into effectively pixels, into atoms, or beyond atoms, into an energy form. And then the energy form somehow makes manifest a material entity, seemingly, and it can present itself in this dimension. It really is all very, very curious, people. Very, very curious. And so when you get looking for the eye, and you find us. I very inadvertently, the Freudian slip, I'll make reference to me as we. I'll say, oh, we did this, and then I think about it. Hang on, what happened there? Well, unconsciously, I know we're a we and not a me. And so, if I know we're a we inside here, and there's so many facets in here, and all human beings have so many facets in them as well, doesn't it really make more sense that we're not separate from these other I's and we's with all this variety of confusion and diversity within us, that in actual fact there is one consciousness somehow pretending to be I's because it makes more interesting. And this is the thing about this awareness. Just being aware of nothing, that's not very exciting. So to be aware of a whole multitude of things going on, that's a whole lot more exciting, isn't it? And so you can see from a spiritually evolved program, whatever you want to call it, that seems entertaining. If you look at evolution, then evolution seems to be entertaining itself. It's playing all the time. Because what it does is it offers up mutations to see if that is a viable proposition for this realm, this dimension. Let us produce a creature, you know, with some variety of mutation and see if that mutation is of benefit to that creature and it can actually grow and survive and become an autonomous entity in its own right. The vast majority of the times, these mutations, they don't survive. But obviously, the evolution is entirely based on this mutational thing over millions of years. And so we, supposedly, are a mutation from what? From a single-celled creature in the sea. Going through all this lineage of mutations seems absurd. It just seems like a story to me, an interesting story. There's no validity to it, there's absolutely no proof to it. Just like there's no proof that we are a hologram. Just like there's no proof, really, that we're just a dream. Trying to prove anything definitively is impossible. And so that's my thought of the day. Thinking about the I when you're taking yourself seriously, people. There's nothing to be taken serious. Only the illusion. Only your programs. Only your fears and desires and anxieties. All this sort of thing. They're just concepts, feelings, emotions, and all these things, they don't pertain to a tangible reality, do they? There's no reality to an emotion. There's a physiological effect to it, but there's no physiology when you look into the depths of that. And so it doesn't matter where you look, there doesn't seem to be any definitive answer. And the more tests that scientists are doing these days with consciousness, trying to discern what exactly is consciousness and where does it reside, then they're becoming more and more befuddled, because it seems to reside everywhere and yet nowhere. But prevailing in this paradigm is this concept of separation, this concept of I. It just seems to me to be a part of the program, to enable this program to run. Because if you don't have an individual perspective, then how can you do anything, really? You know, let's have a look at people playing chess. The whole premise of playing chess is that you don't know what the next move is going to be. Because if it is you that's playing the chess, like people play chess with themselves, well, the mind has the ability to think many steps ahead. So you're always going to know. And so it's not possible to do that unless you don't want to think ahead and you just move very randomly. And then when you move without really thinking and planning, then you look at the option of you know, what you can take. But if we have this seeming separateness, then we don't know what the other person's thinking. We can have a little bit of an idea sometimes, but we don't know for sure. And so it's this not knowing that makes this world interesting. Because if we knew, then we would know that we are the only thing in existence. And so it is the depletion of the memory, the collective memory. That's what's happened. And what seems to happen is when you have like a psychedelic trip, sometimes in a dream, an astral projection, or a near-death experience, or something like this, then you seem to remember, it's only me. It's just me. I'm it. We're all it. We're all one. There's a great familiarity to everything. And so that's what it seems to be, people. Some crazy illusion.